This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Starting today's show is K-State Extension agronomist Logan Simon as he explains different tillage strategies for growers, including strategic, occasional, and no-till. Jeff Whitworth, K-State crop entomologist, continues our show as he discusses green June beetles and what else they often get confused with. He also says what pest alfalfa growers might still be seeing. K-State Extension horticulture expert Matt McKernan ends the show saying what learning opportunities will be on display at the John C. Pear Horticultural Research Center Open House on August 8th. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our show discussing tillage, strategic tillage, occasional tillage, and no-till with K-State Extension agronomist Logan Simon. Logan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Shelby.
Wanting to talk about the no-till, strategic, and occasional tillage, and before we dive in, can we define what all three of those terms technically are?
Absolutely. So, of course, you have no-till, and the name is very self-explanatory compared to maybe the other two. We are talking about the complete absence of tillage or that disturbance in the system. No-till is very important, especially in our more water-limited portions of the state, drier areas of central and western Kansas. A very valuable tool for us to conserve soil water for crop production. However, effective no-till relies on our ability to control weeds. In the absence of good weed control, the value of no-till, and especially no-till fallow periods, like the long fallows that we have in western Kansas, really get negated by the water use of those weeds that are growing out there in the field. So in those really challenging situations where we're not able to use herbicides for effective weed control, we have seen the value of what we call strategic or occasional tillage. And to distinguish strategic and occasional tillage, I really want people to think about the strategic tillage of a long-term no-till system to be reactive. We see a problem, we have weeds, we go out there and we do that one-time tillage pass, maybe one pass, maybe two passes, and then from there we return to no-till in that cropping system indefinitely. We have no set schedule that will be coming back. This differs from occasional tillage, which is a little bit more preventative. In this case, we are on a planned schedule, but it's certainly not annual. In this case, for occasional tillage, and in a lot of the research that we've done with this in western Kansas, that's generally meant one or two passes every 3 years. In a 3-year rotation, that hypothetical wheat summer crop fallow rotation that is most common out in western Kansas. So that kind of differentiates these out. Remember, in occasional tillage, we're only going out and implementing that every 3rd year and remain no-till otherwise.
If people are choosing strategic tillage or occasional tillage, what weeds would they be going out to be controlled?
Right. So we talked about that lack of an ability to control with herbicides. So when I think about these, I really think about these weeds in two different groups. You have your herbicide resistant, and then you've got your herbicide tolerant. And those weeds generally have never been that easy for us to control. When it comes to resistant weeds, of course, everybody knows Palmer amaranth. And then we've also got a lot of challenges with effective control for kochia. And so both of them can sometimes be problematic and motivate us towards strategic or occasional tillage. But really, the big thing here are some of our herbicide-tolerant warm season perennial grasses. That would be tumble windmill grass, tumblegrass, and purple 3-on. Those are native perennials that are early successional species, invade no-till cropland, and can be very difficult to control with herbicides alone.
Does tillage have any other benefits besides just weed control?
Sure. There's a number of things that we can get some benefit from here, and it all hinges on what your other objectives might be. I always say that if I'm considering doing a strategic or occasional tillage pass, it might be a time for me to think about whether or not I might need some lime out on that field, or potentially even incorporating some manure. We know that with both manure and ag lime, those are most effective when they're well incorporated into the soil, and so not super compatible with no-till. If I'm already going to be going out there and tilling, it can be one opportunity for me to incorporate that lime or get that manure incorporated in the field as well. Especially on some of this long-term no-till, we see more and more people getting soil tests coming back with a lime recommendation. And so these can also be important times for us to address that acidification that we've seen happen on some of this long-term no-till as well.
What are your recommendations for growers if they're trying to think through maybe what's best for their operation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, I think it all just kind of depends on your mindset. Some of us are more comfortable with a reactive strategy versus a proactive strategy. And I think it's just figuring out what works and makes the most sense for your operation. The principles and best practices for strategic and occasional tillage are very much the same, regardless of which one you choose. When it comes to timing, it is critical that we are mindful of timing these passes when soil erosion risks are lowest. If you're in Western Kansas, our biggest concern is going to be about wind erosion. So that midsummer time frame, when winds are generally not as high versus the springtime when winds are notoriously high, is going to be an ideal time frame. Similarly, your chances of getting a rain on that ground after it's been tilled are going to be enhanced. This is going to be the best time to get in there in that summer fallow period before going back to wheat and getting that ground covered by a growing plant again within a couple of months after that passes is made. Especially when we're thinking about controlling these perennial grasses, it's critical that we are timing this with a period of really good heat and certainly no rain. We want an extended period of time of dry conditions, easy to come by in Western Kansas, and hot conditions, not unlike what we have here in this latter part of July. We want to make sure that we've got the conditions to quickly dry out those plants and get them good and dead. Generally, if we're going out there with a sweep plow, that's going to be the most common. We want to be equipped with good pickers to flip those plants over and get those roots thoroughly exposed to that heat to get them killed well. These are all very shallow-rooted perennial grasses. They do not need to be tilled very deeply. And so a couple of inches of depth, maybe 2 inches below the soil, is really as deep as we need to be going if this is our primary motivation for strategic or occasional tillage. Deep tillage is not a requirement to control these three key perennial grasses. The other thing is, especially if you've got something else out there that may be something like a Johnson grass or other rhizome producing perennial grass, that deeper tillage is also could potentially cause us to spread those weeds further. So those rhizominous perennials like Johnson grass and field bindweed, we need to be real mindful of that. And tying it back again with your frequency, a lot of the research that we've done has been looking, in the case of occasional tillage, at about every 3 years. But again, I think it's just figuring out what works best for your operation, because it's very possible that every 6th year, 2 cycles of a 3-year rotation may be more than enough of a preventative practice to keep these weeds in check. So just coming at it and assessing every third year and asking that question, do I need to come out and get a tillage pass in there? Or maybe I can skip it and return in another 3 years. All important considerations when we think about these practices.
With this research that you've done when it comes to tillage, did you see any impacts looking at the next year's or future crops?
Yeah, so we really didn't see too many major effects. It's really interesting. I would say it depends on just how bad the weed infestation has gotten. People don't always like to hear that my wheat yields, in fact, actually were increased when I had a little bit of tillage in that system, simply because when you got weed pressure that's that bad, no-till's just not that effective at storing water. And so by getting some tillage in there and getting those weeds controlled, we had a much better environment to establish that wheat into than we did in that very weedy fallow. It is very important that folks understand that we are not going to be recommending the tillage of wheat stubble. Wheat stubble is going to be very valuable, especially in western Kansas, for storing soil water for subsequent row crops. And so when it comes to the timing of this tillage, we are going to be recommending it during that time going back to wheat in the rotation versus going in ahead of a row crop, because we did have that as a treatment in this system. And generally, we do control weeds, but we reduce the yield of that subsequent grain sorghum.
Logan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me on, Shelby.
That was K-State Extension agronomist Logan Simon. I will link an e-update article on this topic in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but stick around because we have more for you up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show discussing green June beetles and giving an update on potato leafhoppers with K-State crop entomologist Jeff Whitworth. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.
Jeff, what is a green June beetle?
You know what? It's a big bug that creates a lot of interest and a lot of fear in a lot of people every year. It's a June beetle. I think about everybody's familiar with June beetles. They're quite common all over the country, actually. The common ones are the kind of, rusty colored ones that we see flying around under lights at night, or in the next morning after a light has been on, they'll be around below the light because they're attracted to the lights at night. The same with the green June beetle. The green June beetle is just as the name implies. It's just a June beetle, only it's large. It's probably, I think it is the largest of the June beetles. They're very common in Kansas. They're green. The thing is, they get misidentified quite commonly with Japanese beetles, because Japanese beetles have started moving into the state the last 10 years and moving across the state. And they are a real problem in just about anything anybody's trying to grow. But as far as crops go, the green June beetle and the adult Japanese beetle can be a problem in corn feeding on the silks and or soybeans feeding on the leaves as those plants start to grow and as the leaves are still nice and green and succulent. But the adult green June beetle, as it flies, it makes a buzzing noise or a humming noise. And because they're so large, they're not real acrobatic. So a lot of times they're flying someplace and people walk into them and they land on them, and it scares you because a lot of people think they're a wasp or there's something that's going to sting or bite. First of all, they don't sting, they don't bite. They're just flying from one place to a food source. They're not real acrobatic, so they can't avoid people. A lot of people think, why are they attracted to us, when we're walking? It's not that they're attracted. They just are going to where they're going to, and you get in their way, and they can't avoid you for the most part. But the adult green June beetle, like the adult Japanese beetle, will feed on any kind of fruit, decaying, ripe, whatever. So they're attracted to orchards, apples, peaches, pears, grapes, tomatoes in your garden, especially cucurbits, like squash. Anytime there's a wound or something, you'll find the Japanese beetles and the adult green June beetle loaded in there, feeding on there, what they're doing is just after the moisture. They're not going to really cause any problem. They're just after the moisture. So the adult green June beetle, they will be around for a little while feeding, and then they take off and they go lay eggs. And they lay their eggs usually in turf or, some perennial like pasture, or one of the problems we have with the grub, and the eggs hatch and they turn into a grub, a white grub, whether it's a Japanese beetle, which is kind of a small white grub, or the green June beetle, which is a large white grub. The curious thing about the green June beetle larvae, they crawl on their back. So the adults feed a little bit on whatever, and then they take off and they go lay their eggs. And then they may come back and feed a little more, and then they go back out and lay eggs. But they're a once a year pest. It takes a year for the eggs, the larvae, the pupae, and the adults to cycle through. Same with the Japanese beetles, but that's what they're confused with. But I think we're getting more and more Japanese beetles than we have green June beetles. Green June beetle's been around forever, but it's a combination of the Japanese beetle adult and the green June beetle adult. I think that it's starting to get people a little more worried or a little scared because there's more and more of them. I get calls about the Japanese beetle adult and or the June beetle, the green June beetle, laying eggs in turf, especially from golf courses or turf farms. They'll call up and say, "Hey, the beetles are out here laying eggs in the turf because they're digging holes in my turf." Well, that's not exactly correct. They're digging holes because the larvae were feeding on the roots. The larvae of the Japanese beetle or the green June beetle, they feed on roots, or detritus in the soil. So these adults are laying eggs, depositing eggs now, and probably for the next month. And those eggs will hatch, those little larvae will crawl down in the soil, and they will feed on roots or detritus or whatever they can feed on. And then as they pupate, they'll pupate in the soil next May and June, and then they emerge as adult. That's what you see that causes the hole in the turf, and especially golf courses where they notice it, because there can be a lot of them coming out on nice, well-kept, well-maintained greens, and folks don't like to see that because it causes little divots where their golf ball is not supposed to hit a divot. But they're coming from that as a grub. They've been in the soil for the last year, feeding on the roots. The adults don't dig a hole to lay the eggs. They're coming from where the eggs hatched. That's the creation of the hole. But they do that, and the guys will say, "Well, but their back end's down in the hole." Well, that's because they come out head first when they come out as an adult. So, but they can do a number on root systems. If you want to control them, the best way is to wait probably another month when the eggs have hatched and the larvae are small, and then treat your lawn or your yard or your turf, or if they're in the pasture. I'd never seen a pasture that was actually, or a brome field that was actually, reduced because of the growth, or the vegetative part of it was reduced because of feeding of grubs. But pastures, brome fields, places like that can produce thousands of these individuals. There's so many roots out there that the feeding doesn't hurt. But when they get into like grapes or in your garden, sometimes they can feed on the root systems enough to degrade the top growth of the plants. But that's the story on the green June beetles and or Japanese beetles. They're very similar. They're very closely related. The green June beetle's a lot bigger. The Japanese beetle adult has little white fringes on both sides. But they'll feed together. When they feed in association with each other, they can do that much more damage if they're feeding on silks, on corn, or whatever they're feeding on. So they don't bite, they don't sting. They're just a cause for concern when they fly into you.
Wanting to also do a quick update on potato leaf hoppers. And Jeff, what are you seeing or hearing from alfalfa growers when it comes to this pest?
We've had quite a year weather-wise for alfalfa where a lot of fields still have not been able to be swathed for the first or the second time. And potato leaf hoppers have become very common in those fields. The potato leaf hoppers seem to be taking over pretty well. That's what causes the yellowing of the leaves and the yellowing of the plants, actually, and the stems. The potato leaf hopper, it feeds As it's feeding, it's sucking the juice out of the plant, which in the drier portions of the state, and there are still portions of the state that are pretty dry, they can make it wilt down pretty quickly. But the main cause of the problem is when they feed, they introduce a toxin to the plant. That's what causes the yellowing of the plant, and that kills the leaves and or the stems as they go down the plant, which reduces the harvestability of the plant, reduces the nutritive ability or a value of the plant. There are a lot of them. A lot of people are wondering if they should spray once the fields dry out. Should they spray or should they just swath it? We recommend just swathing. If you can cut it within 7 days, just cut it, get it out of the field, and that will remove the potato leaf hoppers. Potato leaf hoppers are also in soybeans. Get calls about that because they're very noticeable. Potato leaf hoppers, that little lime green, aerodynamically shaped, herky-jerky moving insect that's out there. They have a little white spot. They're really small, but if you look close, either the nymphs and or the adults have a little white spot on the top. And in soybeans, they'll suck the juice out of the plant. We've never seen them cause a yield problem in Kansas, but they can crinkle the leaves or cause the leaves to curl up and do some cupping. But it's just a plant here or there. There's enough foliage in a soybean field that I've never seen the potato leaf hoppers cause a problem. Alfalfa, that's a different story. Now, if you've already cut it, you just need to wait 10 days, go back and make sure the potato leaf hoppers are gone. Once it has been swathed, this time of year, between the second and the fourth cutting, I've not seen potato leaf hoppers reinfest the field. I've seen them build up in pretty good numbers, but swathing seems to take care of them, and they don't seem to reinfest the field for whatever reason, I don't know. But they don't overwinter in Kansas. So once we get into October, November, at least in all past years, they migrate out to the southern part of the United States or Mexico or someplace. Anyway, they don't overwinter in Kansas. So potato leaf hoppers are really a problem right now, especially in those fields that have not been cut. If it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get in there to harvest it for a while, you might want to treat them because they're not going to get any worse on their own. And there aren't any beneficials that are going to help you, at least that I know of or that I've seen over the years. So, and the nice thing about it, if you do decide to treat, all the insecticides that we've ever tested work really well. So it's just a matter of getting out, monitoring your field, checking to make sure that the yellowing and the potato leaf hoppers aren't creating havoc with the alfalfa, and hope for rain or hope for dry conditions so you can swath it, whichever condition you're needing right now.
Jeff, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime.
That was K-State crop entomologist Jeff Whitworth. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. From turfgrass research to annual flower variety trials to landscape design using differing water amounts, K-State Extension horticulture expert Matt McKernan says this year's John C. Pear Horticultural Center Open House offers a valuable learning opportunity for everyone.
It's really the best opportunity to get down and dirty with some of the really cool horticulture research that happens at the John C. Pear Horticultural Research Center. At this facility, we test a wide variety of plants from trees and shrubs to turf grass to fruits, vegetables, and even industrial hemp to really help us identify through research the plant varieties and practices that are going to really be best for our Kansas landscape.
So is there going to be people there to kind of walk you through the open house and tell you exactly what they've been working on?
Yes, we're going to be really looking at highlighting the research that's actively being conducted in the fields. And so there'll be tours and there'll be folks stationed around to really help guide you through what you're seeing and help you find plants that are going to be great for your landscape that you can take those ideas home and use yourself. Some of the really cool research opportunities that people will be able to see are 2 sections of our turfgrass research that are really focused on no irrigation turfgrass for Kansas. Basically meaning turfgrass that we're not going to water at all during the summer months, and one that we would hope that would stay green all summer long. And so we're looking at both different tall fescue varieties and different types of Bermuda grass that have been growing for at least 2 years now. and are getting only natural rainfall. So essentially during the summer months, there's nothing but heat and drought that they're basically experiencing. So it's a great opportunity to see some of these varieties and cultivars to see if it would be something that you would be interested in maybe incorporating in your landscape. Again, this is all active research, and so it'll be a few years before we're able to kind of publish those findings and give people strong recommendations, but we want to see how these turf grasses do year over year, living on just the rainfall that Kansas provides. One of the research projects that I manage out there is an annual flower variety trial, and so what we're looking at is about 40 new varieties of annual flowers that aren't available in the garden centers and nurseries. We have a chance to grow them before you can buy them. These would be varieties that you could start to find in the garden centers and nurseries next year. And basically, we're looking to see how these annual flower varieties perform in the extreme weather of Kansas against the insects and diseases that our Kansas landscape commonly has. And when you walk out to this field, it's just row after row after row of beautiful flowers. And so it's really fun to kind of pick out the colors and shapes and textures that are really your favorite and be able to then look for those to purchase from your garden centers and nurseries next spring to add to your own landscape.
There's also some other research going on there too, looking at water-wise landscape design.
Yes. So one of the interesting trials out there right now is basically 3 different landscape designs that are given 3 different watering regimens. And so we're looking at if we have the same landscape over and over and over again, and we provide it a little water, a medium amount of water, and a lot of water, how do each of those landscapes perform? Oftentimes our Kansas landscapes are overwatered. People give it too much of a good thing. And so we're really trying to showcase and determine at what watering rates can we plant and maintain kind of a traditional landscape, a native landscape, and really give people a firsthand experience of maybe what they could expect watering in this particular way with this traditional set of plants.
How can they find out more information about attending this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great ways that you can join these events. On Thursday, August 6th, we will be having our Horticulture Industry Field Day. So all members of the lawn, landscape, golf course industries are welcome to come out to that event. They do need to register online for that event and purchase a ticket. Lunch will be included. You can go to the Kansas Turfgrass Foundation website for more information about that. And then the following Saturday on August 8th, the entire community is welcome to come out and join us for the public open house. We'll be hosting that event from 7 a.m. in the morning till 1 p.m. And again, you can come and go anytime during that period of time and check out all of the research, or maybe just the turf grass or the flowers, the things that might interest you the most. I would encourage you for that one to go to the Sedgwick County Extension's website, sedgwick.ksu.edu/news, and find a news story that kind of highlights all of the information you'll see and all of the details that you'll need to be able to attend either of these events.
That's K-State Extension horticulture expert Matt McKernan with information on the John C. Pear Horticultural Center Open House on August 8th. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.